Hi all, hope you're all well. Got a little bit of something different today, so it's still useful for some of the stuff that I talk about. I've actually found some really good uses for this thing and possibly a couple of applications that the company could add if they so wish. And it's something, I don't know if you guys have seen, you probably know the brand because I've spoken about these guys before and I've had a look at them a couple of shows. It is Nitecore. And this is the BB2, which you may not have heard of. It looks kind of funky, comes in a nice box. So let's take a look. So what is this? Well, it's actually a cleaning product. So this is a powerful blower, rechargeable, and you can see in the end there, that's the blower there. It actually has a built-in removable filter there. I haven't actually removed that, I don't know. Oh, there we go. So we can just click it to the side, lift him up, you can see the filter there, and then the fan inside there. Now, this thing is amazingly powerful. I actually couldn't believe how powerful this is. So I'll just take you through some of what it can do. It has an extendable brush, nice and soft. And this was first made for photography equipment. You know, that was their primary use. But actually it's really good for optics. So if you're a shooter like me and you have a bunch of optics sat around, you know full well that one of the biggest problems with them is they get covered in grit and really fine dust. And that grit and dust has a real good chance of scratching the lens, because what tends to happen is it gathers on the lens, it starts to get a bit foggy, whatever. People then wipe it with a cloth or even their fingers, and all you're doing is moving those tiny bits of grit around on the glass, and a lot of the time the grit's actually harder than the glass and it just scratches and scores it. It's a bit like, you know, if you're cleaning your sunglasses, you would probably wash them off first before you kind of started rubbing them with a cloth, because if you just got them dry and rubbed them with a cloth straight away, eventually you would just scratch the hell out of them. It's no different with optics. So of course they were thinking of camera lenses at the time, but I was thinking of rifle scopes. So I'd take this thing to work and then I use it on some of the equipment at work. But if you're into EDC, there's all kinds of good uses for a cleaning tool like this, and especially if you're into the shooting. And I'll go into a little bit of how I think this could be used further in the shooting world as well. We're cut over to a bit of footage of me in the armory doing some cleaning and stuff, and I talk a little bit about that. So one of the applications for this is of course optics. We've got a variety of different weapon optics here. We've got a little red dot from aim point, a couple of bigger scopes from Steiner, and then this little low power variable optic from Vortex. And one of the issues with these, they've got really high-end glass in them and they cost a lot of money. You know, something like this is a 3,000 plus pound piece of equipment, and what people tend to do is they get a bit dusty, a bit of grit on them when you're shooting them at the range, especially on the heavy caliber stuff, because that's kicking up a lot of dust and stuff. That gets on the glass and people tend to just reach forward, wipe it off, and of course there could be bits of sand and grit in there. They're going to be a lot harder than maybe the glass is, and you end up scratching up the glass, which is over time going to ruin your optic. And one of the biggest things about rifle optics, especially precision rifle optics, is that, you know, they're designed to get you the most amount of light transmission through the optic possible, so that when you shoot in low light or extreme long range, you're getting as much of that light transmission and you're actually getting a decent image. As soon as you start clouding up that glass and scratching it up, you're losing a percentage of that light transmission. And that's why you pay a lot of money for an optic, is for the light transmission, you know, for that high quality glass on there. you know, if you're not bothered about that, then just buy an optic for £100 and clean it however you want and throw it away. But if you're going to spend this kind of money on scopes, then you really want to be able to take care of them. So on a range, you can pack this. It's rechargeable, obviously, so even if you took a power bank or, you know, charged it off a vehicle, and you're going to get a decent run time off it. But as soon as I get something like this coated in a load of grit and stuff, I can simply take this with the extendable brush on the end, and I'm just clearing out all that grit. Super powerful. So that's now basically clean again, because most of the time it's just grit and dust that gets on these things, you know, as long as you're not touching them with your fingers. They can get a bit clouded up if they get rained on, but most of the time it's just dust and grit, and you don't want to rub that around with a cloth. And again, on a bigger optic now, just blowing that out. That's got rid of all the dust ingress from there. Same on the other end. So it's got various different modes on it there. We have the lock mode, silent mode, optical mode, and turbo mode. So in the lock mode, obviously nothing's going to work. You've got your on button there. That's your thing for the brush. The brush is pretty cool because it actually comes out on a magnet, so it can be removed, and I'll show you why that is in a second. This is your on-off button, your charging port there. It's just a straight USB-C charger. If you have it on lock, hold the button down and kick it round to silent. It actually has a light on the front as well, which is awesome. If you're trying to clean in any unusual dark places, for example, the chamber of a rifle is one of those kind of places, you can use this to just light the situation up, and then you can just switch it off by knocking it back into the lock mode again. And then these modes, I really think of them more as three power function. You've got your silent, what they call the optical mode, and the turbo mode. So on silent, you can hear it firing up there. Aim it at the mic, you might hear it. But that's certainly enough to move any sort of unstubborn dust away. Up one more to optical. And you can definitely hear that puts out a considerable amount of air. And then turbo. That is really, really strong. So I would say that on turbo is almost the equivalent of a compressed air canister. You know, you can buy those cans for like electrical equipment cleaning or cleaning keyboards and stuff like that. This is pretty much the same strength as one of those. And that's really good, you know, if you're cleaning out keyboards with debris and all that kind of thing. It's just got so many uses. But for me, you know, more towards the armourer's stuff. In the box you also get obviously your USB charging cable like so, and then the little clip that sits on the end just to stop any grit and dust getting up into that. So on its own, this thing is actually awesome. It'll run for quite a while. So to get an idea of how powerful it is, in silent this thing is putting out about 30 kilometers an hour airspeed, and then take it up to the optical setting about 55 kilometers an hour, and then right up to turbo, which is unreal. It's putting out 80 kilometers an hour of wind speed, and obviously it's all coming in a very small area, so it's like directing a little mini hurricane at your dust particles to move them. And in terms of how long it'll run for, I mean, it only takes about an hour to charge up. And actually, when you charge it, you know, there's a light on here that will tell you when it's fully charged. You can see that glowing there. But the light also will tell you, you know, how much charge has got left. So if it's green, that's above 50%, blue below 50%, and red below 10%. So we're just below 50% at the moment because I've been fiddling around with it. And the other thing to note on here is if you double press that, it will just keep running. Put it into quiet mode and then click it again, it'll stop. Or you can just hold it and it'll run for as long as you're holding it. Finger off, it'll stop. So double click to keep it on. Running times in turbo mode, they class, you know, a running time as 10 seconds. It will do 90 lots of 10 seconds. In optical mode, it will do 210 lots of 10 seconds. And in silent mode, it will do 800 lots of 10 seconds. So that's plenty, and then you could just recharge off a power bank or whatever. The battery is lithium ion, you know, like I say, it charges in an hour. It takes plenty of charge. It's been fantastic, to be honest. I really like this thing. I saw it at EWA, you know, I had a good look over it then, and I was thinking, you know, camera lenses to start with, which that's something that's always a problem. I go out, you know, to do videos, and often someone will say to me when I'm doing a video, oh, have you seen the end of your camera lens? You know, it's covered in grit, because we do a lot of recording outside, especially for work, and the guns kick up loads and loads of muck and dust, so it all ends up, I always put filters onto the end of the lens, so it's not actually going onto the lens itself, but it's all over the filter. And this thing, I can just aim it at the camera, blow all the rubbish off, and away we go. So that's not all. What we also got was the accessory pack there, and that comes with a crevice nozzle, an extended dusting brush, and an extended nozzle with brush. So we'll just have a look at what we got in there as well. They come in that plastic box, and like I said before, that thing just detaches with a magnet, so we'll pop that over there. And then you've got these various options. So this one, really long soft brush, that just slides directly in like so. So now you've got a much larger brush on the front of that thing that you can use to maybe brush in some crevices, or just if you wanted a lot softer brush to wipe over a lens. But like I say, useful for scopes. And that just pulls out of there. Then we have this tool here, which is more of a focused brush, and it directs the air right down the middle there. So again, easily clips on the end. And now we've got something that's capable of getting into pretty small areas and focuses all of the air through that port right at the end. And then lastly, no brush on this one, it's just a crevice tool. So this one is actually really useful for cleaning out the firearms kit, you know, especially if you've got little bits you want to blow out because you get loads of carbon dust in them, and it's kind of handy to blow them out sometimes if you're not going to give them a full strip and clean and oil them all down, and you just want to kind of get all the rubbish out of them quickly. Then this is ideal, and you can even take it on the range and blow out everything on the range. But the other thing I like about this, you could actually adapt it to blow cool air through the chamber of various different firearms. So the reason that I would even want to do that is because, for example, we do a lot of proof testing and we're constantly waiting for barrels to cool down, because as the barrels get really hot, that the accuracy is basically massively affected. You start getting point of impact shift, and one of the things people try and do is stand the rifles up on their butt with the barrel poking up in the air. That has like a chimney type effect. But what would be really good is if you could get some you know, a serious amount of air moving, because the more air you can move through there, the more heat you take out the barrel. Some people even tip water down the barrels. I'm not a big fan of doing that, because number one, I think, you know, it probably has a detrimental effect on the metal, because it's getting so hot and then it's being radically cooled down again. So there's going to be some stresses caused by that. And then the other problem is that if you've got a ton of water in the chamber and you start shooting again, that can cause an overpressure. So if you're going to stick water down it, you have to do a pretty thorough job of cleaning it back out, because you definitely can get an overpressure from having a bunch of liquid sat around in your chamber when you shoot a rifle. Even if you just ran it like that, it would have a pretty good effect, because like I say, it's moving a lot of air. I'm pretty sure you could probably put this attachment on here, yeah, and you could actually get that up into there pretty well, and that would have an effect. But if you had like a little plug with a tube coming off, that would make it so much easier, because you could just sit that thing on the bench, put your plug in there, and then simply sit for a couple of minutes while that air was blowing through the system. So, like I said, I'll cut the video in and you guys can have a look at me talking about that. But this BB2, I'm absolutely amazed by it. From Nitecore, it's new out. It's around £90, which isn't cheap, but given that it's such a strong piece of kit, you know, I haven't used anything of this size that can put out that kind of power other than, you know, compressed air canister. So it's basically replacing compressed air canisters for the rest of your days, because they get pretty old pretty quick. You know, you buy a few of them and you use them all up, throw them in the bin, and then you've got to go and get a load more, and they're not particularly cheap. And if you're in a workshop or something like that, you do run through quite a lot of them. So I would definitely say, you know, that is worth its weight in gold, because if you look after it, it's going to last you. So they give you a warranty of 1 year, but then once that warranty expires, you've got a limited warranty. So what that boils down to is that if anything goes wrong after the year, you send it back to Nitecore. They will take care of the labour and the fixing of it, but you would have to pay for any defective parts after that 12 months is up. So that's still pretty good. You know, you get a year with it, and then after that, they're going to basically give you free labour as long as you pay for the bits to be replaced. So I could imagine after a while you might need the battery replacing. So that's pretty reasonable. You know, you send it off and they stick a battery in it. You just pay for the battery and they send it back. I haven't got an issue with that. So love this thing. I'll stick a link up. It's a bit of an unusual one for us, but it definitely crosses over into a lot of the things I do with the firearms. And to be honest, I've been using it for EDC stuff as well, you know, because we have obviously lots of folding knives and lots of kit. And when I get them out to do photography on them, they're almost always got loads of layers of dust and debris in there. I don't want to take them all apart and have to sort of wipe it all out. And with this, you know, especially with this longer brush, I can just get in there, blow it all out on turbo mode, and we're good to go. Give the outside a wipe down, you know, to make it look nice. But this will just get rid of all the dust and crud from inside of your folding knives and any other little EDC items you've got, you know, fiddly little bits. Sometimes the insides of torches get debris and rubbish in them, you know, anything like that you can clean out with this. So I would strongly suggest you guys check it out and buy one.